Hello and welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Last week we released a video on game art, which was quite amazing. We spoke to Mayank Rajput from Lakshya Digital, and it was all about game art. We got a brilliant positive response for the video, and all of you requested for something similar based on game design. So here we are in conversation with Oliver Jones today. So so yeah, just a quick background. Oliver Jones runs Bombay Play right now, and he has a great background, which he himself might elaborate it really well. So I'll directly will just start with the introduction. Oli.
What's up? Well, thanks for having me.
No problem.
My name's Oliver, and I'm a game designer by trade. I've worked at companies like Zynga, Glue Mobile, and also started two gaming companies here in India. I've worked on some big games like Empires and Allies, Deer Hunter. And also in India, I've worked with big brands like Bahubali, Alibaba, and
Yeah.
and now starting something new.
Awesome. So you your major skill is game design, right? That's how you started. What according to you is game design?
Game designer can be a lot of things. But game design by itself, it doesn't mean that you're a good artist. You don't have to be a good programmer. You just have to be good at communicating the vision of the game. So you are responsible for sort of defining what the game is, designing the systems within the game, all the details. You have to make them very clear for the team to follow. You also have to be the guy who brings out all the best ideas in your team. Like, your artists have great ideas, your programmers have great ideas. And so it's your job to make them a reality.
Awesome. And majorly he's also responsible for the. So basically, the work is divided into pre-production as well as production, and some part of it is also post-production.
Yeah, that's right. So in pre-production, sometimes that could further be divided, but in pre-production, it's usually high-level concepts. So you're just working on creating a pitch. Sometimes you're making just a pitch to try and get a buy-in from the team that this is what you should be building. So you're spending a lot of time like playing a lot of games, seeing what's popular, seeing where you possibly could have an opportunity to make a new game that does something different, and then you make maybe a presentation to your team and sort of sell them the vision of what this thing is going to be, and hopefully everybody is excited, and then it goes into production. And you start thinking about how do we make this vision a reality, and that's when you start bringing on your programming team, your engineering team, like your art team, and integration as well. And that's when all these other roles like your audio guys start coming in, doing the fleshing out the game, and eventually you end up getting into beta where you're testing it with real people out there on the market. And during that time as a designer, you're just taking feedback all the time from people who are playing your prototype or playing your beta game, and you're adjusting the mechanics. You're changing certain things depending on the feedback, improving the game constantly over and over and over again until it's ready for production, which is getting released, doing your big release out there on the market, and hopefully getting wide critical acclaim and a good number of fans in the process.
Yeah. So if you divide it into pre-production and post-production, pre-production is majorly related to the research or the amount of you know uh, analytics or things that you keep on tracking everyday basis, as in what is working in the industry, and how we can find that opportunity to convert it into a game.
It's very difficult to know what's cool, you know? Uh,
Yeah,
like maybe all your friends play a game, but maybe it's only your friends who play that game. You need
yeah,
to figure out what's popular right now. Like gaming is very trend based. So what is the trend right now? And using data is a great way to figure out like where are people going, what apps are getting the most downloads, are they getting more downloads today than they did last year? So you can sort of see where the heat is in the market. And but if you only copy what's popular, you're probably not going to be popular because you're a
yeah,
copycat. You're a copycat.
yeah.
So you have to first look at the data, see what is popular, and and then kind of come up with something similar to it, which is different enough for people to perhaps choose your game over what's already there.
Yeah, yeah. So that's one skill that probably a game designer should possess, like to be good at maybe good in data, or doing research and reading a lot about stuff, consuming a lot of information every day to keep updated about the industry, right? But when it comes to production, it's more of management stuff, right? Because you keep on having conversations with your team to communicate and help them understand what exactly is planned. So how, what do you think are the skills majorly that a game designer should possess to fit in that overall process of game development, the key skills that you think should be there?
Absolutely. So skill number one, documentation. It's a very
Yeah.
boring job, but somebody has to do it. If you're trying to build a game, and it's like trying to build a building with no plans, you know, yeah,
True.
it's impossible. It's impossible. Yeah, there has to be a plan on how this game should be built. So that's where documentation comes in. You have
Yeah.
to. So the game designer is sitting there on their, writing documents most of the time. It's like during pre-production, it's more like high-level concept, but once your concept is approved, you've got to define it. You've got to be very, very as precise as possible on how things are supposed to work, um, and sort of in which order, and what are all the requirements in order to build any particular feature. So you have to have a good brain for like dividing the work up or dividing your game up into different segments. Like, okay, this is the mini game, this is the meta game, this is how the two things like work together, uh, and it requires like not just documentation, but you have to be a bit of a UX and UI designer. You have to sometimes like gray box the screen. That means just like, where do the buttons go? What do the buttons do when you
Yeah.
press them? What is the feedback you're giving the player when you press those buttons?
Yeah, just to sorry to interrupt, but just because you said about the design stuff, right? You need to be a good designer, right? So there is a huge misconception among the people, which is like they feel that game designer is the one who designs the elements, like designs in the sense the visual elements. There's a huge misconception that game art and game design is one and the same. So can you just elaborate, like from your perspective, what is the major difference?
Sure. So the game designer will say, okay, these are the things that are required. These are the elements that are required. Like, okay, in a standard game, when you press, when you start the game, you've got to have like play game or load game, level select, uh, something of that nature. So a designer will define all the things that are needed there. And sometimes a designer will also give like a rough layout of what should be there. Like, okay, we need a button here, we need a button there, we need a button here. Maybe providing some references, like we want it to kind of look like this. And then the designer will give that to an artist who will make it happen, make the magic happen. But yeah, the designer doesn't draw anything. A good designer should not be spending their time trying to illustrate. They should be spending all of their energy just defining, making it very clear for your artist and for your programmer, how does this game menu work, for example. And that's just the menu. Like there are some designers spend a long time just doing menus and doing UIs, whereas some designers, there are lots of different kinds of designers, which I think we should talk about. But and then there are some designers who are just working on the gameplay, and like what happens if you while your character is running on the floor and you press A, and then he's in the air and you press A. What's the if and or sort of statement there, and what is the action that is expected by the user, and play testing that over and over again. So there are lots of different kinds of designers as well, but none of them draw.
Draw.
None of them. Well, so some of them will script. Some of them will script. They are given tools by programmers. Like, okay, a good example of this is in like GTA. GTA designers make the quests. So the developers have created like a quest system where you can script characters from go here, go there, say this. It's basic scripting, but it's not coding. So a designer has to be very good with tools. Like learn the tools really well. Learn Unity, learn Cocos Creator, learn Construct, and be like a wizard with the tools and know them inside and out, so that they can create the best game possible. But that's usually like during production. I think what we're talking about is sort of pre-production, before things have been made.
Yeah.
Is it just defining what should be made?
Awesome. So the first skill you mentioned is documentation. What is the next that is required?
So mathematics. A little bit of math. So some things are very hard to document, right? In words.
Yeah.
So let's say, for example, like very simply, a level up system. So when, let's say in a basic game, every time you complete a level, you get 100 experience points. And in order to level up, you need 200 experience points for your first level. Then the third level, then the fourth level. So the game design, in a very basic sense, somebody has to define what the numbers are, right? And it's not the artist's job. It's not the developer's job. Whose job is it? It's the designer's job. Right? The designer is the definer.
Yeah.
Right. So it's very common. There's actually a specialist job for this in big games. It's called an economy designer.
Right.
And that kind of designer sits on either Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets, and they are playing with numbers every day.
Yeah.
And they're figuring out what the right curve is. How often should you level up? What rewards are you getting for leveling up? How do we like randomize things to make things feel like they're not also scripted, and just trying to figure out how these numbers affect the player's experience. You know, because some systems, numbers really do affect your experience. Everyone feels bad if the next level is like, it feels like I have to spend 2 weeks to get there, right? And I'm earning experience points too slow. So, people get bored and drop off. So, yeah, through math, you can create a lot of fun, all right? So listen up in math class. You don't have to do complex math. Usually, you just have to be, just understand your intention, what you want the users to feel, and make the numbers fit that model. Yeah.
Correct. Awesome. So designing is documentation is first. Math is second. What's next?
So I mentioned this before, but tools. tools. I'm going to say call it tools, but so a designer has to always be playing their game, has always to be getting feedback, and they have to be tweaking their game constantly, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes people call this role like a gameplay designer, um, but and what you're doing is play testing your game, finding problems in I don't know, maybe it's a balance problem, or maybe it's a positioning problem. Like if you're making levels, for example, like you need to be really good at tools to make good levels, right?
Right.
So you have to really understand, like in the case of level design, what's a nice flow? How do I create the flow that I want? How am I giving people the experience that I want? And all of that, you have to be like a super expert in your tools to create the experiences that you want, right? So I think that would be the third sort of practical skill. I think overall, though, you need to have a great vision.
Yeah, yeah, got it. Awesome. So there is one common question that I usually get is there are so for a programmer when he goes to an interview, it's easier for him because he can show the prototypes or the demos right there in front of the interviewer, right? Because that's the kind of work that he has done, and he can demonstrate his work. In terms of artist, he has he can have that Behance or ArtStation kind of a thing where he can put on all his work and then showcase his skills over there. What is that one thing that a game designer, when he comes to an interview, should be ready with? Like, because compared to this, I think having that vision, you cannot show that in that interview, right? What is that thing that you think is important?
I'm very impressed with designers who come and talk to me who have built stuff, you know. Just because you're not very good at art or programming doesn't mean you can't build things. There are lots of tools out there, drag and drop tools. Uh, you could like visual coding tools that you can use to build things. A good designer should go into an interview and say, "Look, I've built this stuff." Uh, it, like not just and that's not just limited to gaming on computers or mobile, but if you've built a card game, that's good design.
Right, right.
Yeah, if you can demo that game, if you can show like a board game that you've made, that's also very good. So like we always give preference to people who are good builders, because designers are just people who love to make stuff at the end of the day.
Yeah,
They have great ideas and they're figuring out, how do I make this happen? You
yeah.
know, and just doing it through computers is one way. Doing it through board games is another way. Card games again. So good, like really passionate designers make it happen with whatever tools they have at their disposal, right? Um, I think secondly, during your design interview, if you have a good interviewer, they will do an assessment based off of your sort of documentation ability, your ability to break down systems, explain systems to them, and so I think it's very helpful for a designer to play one game at least very deeply,
Yeah.
very deeply, and deconstruct it, understand, like try and reverse engineer how things have been done, and be able to explain that to an interviewer clearly. And if you can do that, then I think you should be able to ace the design interview at any of
Yeah.
the big companies, any of the Zynga, Glues, Kabams, the EAs of the world.
Yeah, that's a very valuable tip actually. Yeah, cool, cool. So, just to wrap it up, you started as a game designer, uh, and then how was the journey? Like, you started as a game designer directly into Zynga, or how was it? Tell me the journey till now, like being at Bombay Play.
Sure. Well, I was working in London for a while uh, at a company called State of Play Games, and we worked on very artistic games, and those games went on to win BAFTAs actually.
Okay.
And so that was sort of my start in the industry, just making these. I was more of a level designer there, and just again working with tools, figuring things out, making things fun with whatever I had at my disposal. And from there, I got an offer at Zynga. And at the time, Zynga was a very exciting, very new company.
Yeah.
But the position I was offered was in India.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's how I ended up in India. I was very young and foolish and decided I didn't have anything to lose. And Zynga just seemed like such an exciting company. I wanted to give it a shot.
Yeah, and I think at that time it was like the biggest game making company because Farmville and everything.
It was going through like a lot of innovations were happening in gaming, mostly
Yeah.
around like making things more casual. That was the big innovation. And
Yeah.
Zynga was one of the first guys to do it in a big way. I mean, there were others out there like PopCap and doing
Yeah.
casual games, but Zynga was the first to hit mass market. So I wanted to learn from there. I went to Zynga and talked to as many people as I can, learned from all the great designers who were working at Zynga at the time, and from there, sort of after going through this process of learning, decided to start up, co-found Moonfrog in Bangalore,
Yeah.
and take what we'd learned at Zynga and sort of bring it into a new company.
Yeah.
And build like the Zynga of India was the idea.
Yeah, and you guys created some amazing stuff at Moonfrog while you were there at the company, right?
Yeah. So we embraced it with experimentation. We tried everything. We tried everything. We built like bingo games. We built a team party game. We made a cricket game. We were taking everything that we knew and tried to apply it in the best way possible. And thankfully, the game of team party was super popular in India. So I think that
Yeah.
grew to around. It went over 2 million daily active users, maybe 3.5 million daily active users,
Wow.
and goodness knows where it is today. But I think especially during lockdown, it's probably quite
I'm
popular.
sure. I'm sure.
Yeah, but from Moonfrog, decided to look more towards international games. So at that point, decided to be the design director over at Blue Mobile,
Yeah.
where we were doing Deer Hunter, Jason Statham's Sniper X, also Quiz Up. So it was a great experience being at Blue Mobile, and we scaled up the studio so big in Hyderabad. Like
Yeah.
we started off. I'm not sure what the numbers were initially, but it was maybe 60 people maybe, and then it suddenly went up to like 200, 250 nearly.
Wow. Wow.
Just lots of artists, lots of really huge art team over there, big design team, sort of running games. But it was great working on live games. But as a designer, and I think every designer just loves making things. Just loves
Yeah.
building stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes working at Zynga, working at Glue, you don't get the opportunity to work on something new. It's more about running games which are already popular and trying to excite the audiences with new and exciting features.
Yeah.
And I think some people find that exciting, but me personally, it's about building new original content. So that's where the idea of this new company, Bombay Play, came about. And again, we've been like super successful with our we're trying to show the world. I think a lot like how Underdogs is showing the world that making new and exciting games in India is possible, and the future is here.
Awesome, awesome. I hope you have any new games coming up now.
Yes, we do. We're releasing a battle royale game,
Wow.
and maybe I'll share the trailer with you.
Yeah, please do.
Do a premiere.
Please, please, please. All right, all right. So I wish great success, man. Thanks a lot for your time and some great insights you've given. Guys, if you've liked the video, please like, subscribe, and comment on the video. And do follow Bombay Play and all the stuff that Bombay Play is making right now. It's some amazing content they've created. If you're at home quarantined, you need to play their games because few of them card games are doing really, really well. So yeah, do check out. Thanks a lot.
Ciao.
मेरे